Good morning. My name is Officer Durrett, and I'm the Public Information Officer here at the Naugatuck Police Department. Today, 11/21, we are here to discuss the most recent updates regarding the murder of an 11-month-old child that took place at the residential home of 150 Millville Avenue in Naugatuck in the late morning hours on November 18th, 2022. Here with me today from the Naugatuck Police Department, I have Chief Colin McAllister, Deputy Chief Daniel Nork, and Detective Lieutenant Ryan Burns. It goes without saying that the circumstances of this case are both horrific and heartbreaking. Due to the severity of this case, we have had assistance from multiple agencies, which include the FBI, the Connecticut State Police Central District Major Crime Squad, the Connecticut State Police Violent Crime Task Force, the State's Attorney's Office out of GA4, the New Haven Police Department, probation, and other numerous local agencies. To represent some of these agencies, today I have here with me Special Agent in charge of the FBI New Haven Field Office, David Sundberg, FBI Special Agent Mike Butch, and CSP Public Information Officer Pedro Munez. I ask that you guys hold all questions until the end of this conference, and let me introduce to you now Naugatuck Police Chief Colin McAllister, who will discuss the details of this case.
Thank you for coming this morning. Again, we're here to provide an update about this horrific and gruesome crime that occurred on Friday morning. I just think it's important to start off by saying in the collective law enforcement careers of everybody who's here, as well as those who've investigated, this is definitely one of the most difficult and trying cases that we've ever had to investigate. I'd like to walk you through the sequence of these events as they occurred, as well as, again, going through the suspect that we have here today. Move that forward. This is the suspect that's involved in this incident, Christopher Francisquini, age 31, and his descriptors have already been released to the media. Francisquini currently has a arrest warrant for murder as well as risk of injury. That warrant was obtained late last night, and we have a $5 million bond on Francisquini. That warrant was obtained by detectives throughout the work since Friday, and is a culmination of their efforts. Christopher Francisquini is well known to law enforcement as well as Naugatuck Police. He has an extensive criminal history. We are familiar with him. He is currently out on almost $375,000 in bond. He has a history of violent offenses. He has posed a danger to the public previously. He is also on special parole when he committed this crime. He also had a court-ordered tracking device on him, which was cut off shortly after the commission of this crime. The victim, identified as Camilla Francisquini, age 11 months. She was the biological daughter of Christopher Francisquini, and they lived at the residence on 150 Millville Avenue here in Naugatuck. The cause of death has been ruled by the medical examiner's office as homicide, and the manner of the death has been neck compressions as well as stab wounds. The investigators and first responders at that scene found Camilla's body in a state of dismemberment when they arrived at that scene. I'm going to run you through the sequence of events as they unfolded. Shortly after 11:30 that morning on November 18th, Naugatuck Police were dispatched to the address on 150 Millville Avenue. We received a report that the victim was deceased inside the household. As the events unfolded, it was determined that there was a suspect identified as Christopher Francisquini. His identity and the fact that he was operating a suspect vehicle was broadcast to law enforcement as well as put out to the media through our various outlets. That 2006 gray Chevy Impala, which Francisquini was known to be operating, was located and recovered on I-91 in the area of Exit 8 by Friday evening. That information was generated by a tipster from the public who saw media coverage and was aware now that this vehicle was wanted by police. As a result of the locating of that vehicle, Naugatuck detectives, as well as the Connecticut State Police, launched an extensive search effort Friday night that lasted well into Friday morning in an attempt to locate Francisquini, as a witness reported seeing him fleeing into a wooded area where his vehicle was discovered. While all this was occurring, Naugatuck detectives, as well as detectives from the Connecticut State Police Central District Major Crime Squads, worked well into the night, as well as Saturday morning, processing the crime scene on Millville Avenue. By Saturday morning, we have released those photos of the suspect, Francisquini. He was seen by several witnesses, as well as confirmed through the surveillance still photos that were released to the media, as seen on Quinnipiac Avenue in New Haven, sometime around 4 p.m. Again, members of the public have contacted law enforcement after seeing the media coverage from this incident and followed up, allowing us to at least try to begin to trace Francisquini's movements. By Saturday, Naugatuck detectives, again with the State Police Violent Crime Task Force and the FBI and the New Haven Police continued to search in the New Haven area for Francisquini. While all that was also occurring, we continued to process the Chevy Impala, which had been recovered the night before. Francisquini is considered armed and dangerous at this time. We caution the public about approaching him. We have our information up here about how to contact Naugatuck Police, as well as our confidential tip line. If anyone out there is providing aid, assisting, or helping hide Francisquini, you yourself are not safe. This suspect has shown a predisposition to violence and a violent homicidal act. We need you to contact law enforcement immediately if you have any information on Francisquini's whereabouts. You are not safe. My message to Francisquini is turn yourself in immediately. We will not rest until we take you into custody. We will be putting forward every effort to locate and apprehend this suspect and bring him to justice. This is an unconscionable act. It is a heinous crime. And we have with us here the FBI out of New Haven, who will be assisting us in all of our efforts to locate and bring to justice Francisquini. They are a national organization. If you are trying to flee or elude law enforcement outside of the jurisdictional boundaries of Connecticut, we will capture you. We have the full support of our federal partners. With that said, I would like to turn it over to Special Agent Sundberg, who's going to describe some of those resources as well as the support that is being given to us by the FBI.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is David Sundberg. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the FBI for the state of Connecticut. I'd like to begin by first offering condolences to the grieving family. The FBI is prepared to offer a reward of up to $10,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the subject in this case, Christopher Francisquini. We enjoy great partnerships amongst the law enforcement community across the state of Connecticut, and the FBI intends to make sure those partnerships extend well outside of the state. We've been working with the Naugatuck PD and Connecticut State Police and all of their local and state partners to try to bring this crime to closure and this subject to justice. We will continue to do so to ensure that we can bring any resources necessary to bring, again, the crime to closure. I would encourage any member of the public that has any information to please contact the Naugatuck PD at their tip line or at the Naugatuck Police Department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would just like to close out our comments here by extending our condolences to the Francisquini family for the loss of Camilla. This is something that it tears at the very fabric of our community, losing somebody so young who hasn't even had an opportunity to start their life yet. The death of anyone is tragic, but in these circumstances, this is something that affects Naugatuck as a community as a whole. I believe sincerely that our community is grieving with that family. Naugatuck has felt this loss across all cross-sections of our community, and our detectives, our investigators, all of Naugatuck's first responders have been deeply affected by this horrific and heinous crime. This is something that we will not rest until Francisquini is brought to justice. We'll be continuing to work around the clock and expend every resource and not rest until he is brought before us here today. At this point, I'm willing to take several questions, but bearing in mind this is a very active investigation, it's still underway, and I may be limited in what I could say.
Who called 911?
A household member called 911.
Her mother? The mother of the child?
I don't want to say at this point, but somebody who was in the household discovered Camilla deceased and called police.
Where is the mother of the child at this time?
I don't want to release that at this point.
Have you not seen Francisquini since those photos on Saturday morning that you guys got?
Those were the photos that we have of him that we can confirm. However, we did receive several information from the public that he had some contact with members of the public in New Haven. So that was our last confirmed sightings of him. And again, I just want to be very clear that these tips and this information has been generated by the members of the public who have seen media coverage and realized that there was a nexus between Francisquini and the media coverage they had. So we're appealing again to the public to try to follow this, and if they see anything, if they know anything, if they think there's even a remote chance that they may have seen Francisquini, to contact law enforcement immediately.
Do you think he's still in the state, or do you have reason to believe he may have fled Connecticut?
We're not ruling anything out. That's why we have our federal partners here, and if that's the possibility, or if we develop any information that he has fled the state, they're prepared to offer assistance in that role.
Where did you guys find the?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Was he home alone with her? Because you mentioned they discovered her, so.
The sequence and the timeline is obviously still part of this investigation, but there were multiple household members who actively reside in this house.
Where did you guys find the GPS monitor that had been cut off?
So that's a secondary component of this investigation. Prior to law enforcement being contacted, Francisquini, as well as the child's biological mother, were involved in a dispute in Waterbury. It was during that incident that the GPS monitor was removed, in what we believe was an attempt to avoid law enforcement apprehension and deter our efforts to locate him.
Can you say what day that was?
I'm sorry?
Can you say what day that was? How much time was between that dispute?
This all unfolded on Friday morning prior to the initial call being at 11:30.
So you believe that the child was murdered, he was in Waterbury with the biological mom, having a dispute, cut the monitor off, and then fled?
Correct.
Were police called in Waterbury because of this dispute with the mother? I mean, were you guys called for that, and not you specifically, Waterbury police?
I can't comment if Waterbury police responded to that. However, we did have a response after learning of the nexus between the incident and the evidence that we did recover in Waterbury, specifically that GPS monitor.
Can you speak at all to what might have led to a heinous act like this, what the motive is?
I think that's a question that we're all struggling with at this point of what would lead somebody to do this, much less to their own child.
I know you said you're aware of Christopher Francisquini. Was there any history of domestic violence with his girlfriend, his wife, the past relationships, or in the household that would lead you to believe that this led up to this particular?
As far as any sort of domestic violence, I can't speak to that, but he does have an extensive history of violent acts. This offender was somebody who has a very extensive criminal history and has shown disregard for the safety of others during his extensive criminal history.
Do you have any reason to believe he would try to come back to that house or to that neighborhood? Should that neighborhood be on high alert?
We're not ruling that out. That's why we're getting this information out here, so the public has all the information they need. Should they see him or anything they feel suspicious, they need to contact us immediately.
Was the girl's mother harmed in that dispute in Waterbury?
At this time, no, she was not injured.
Do you know what time that was, that dispute in Waterbury?
Prior to 11:30 in the morning, on the November 18th, on Friday.
So it was not, obviously, she was there, it was not the mother who found.
She returned back to the residence after the dispute, and at 11:30, we did receive a phone call, the 911 call reporting the incident.
Can you say how many people lived in that home?
I don't want to give you an exact number. We could get that for you afterwards, but.
Do you believe the suspect walked from exit 8 to Pontiac Ave, or do you believe he was picked up by somebody?
Again, how he got from that vehicle to another location is something we're looking into. If anybody has any information, we do have several members of the public that have contacted us who did have contact, I'm not going to get into specifics of that, after he was seen moving his vehicle, so.
Was that his car or was it stolen?
It was a family member's car.
Does he have ties to any particular city other than Naugatuck or Waterbury?
We're currently investigating all ties, including those in Waterbury as well as New Haven. We've been working closely with the cooperation of Chief Jacobson and the New Haven Police Department, as well as his detectives. They've been assisting us throughout the course of this investigation, as well as the City of Waterbury detectives, too.
Do you have a time of death on the child? I'm just trying to understand the sequence of events when it's believed that she was killed.
Sometime in the morning of November 18th is the theory that we're working under.
But, I'm sorry, just to clarify, before or after the dispute with the mother?
We believe prior.
Right.
The death was prior,
Correct.
possibly to dispute,
Yes. Yes,
and it's believed that the mother didn't know of the death at the time of the
that's
dispute.
correct.
Is there any-
cell phone you can track?
All of that was destroyed in that initial argument up there, along with the GPS tracking. So again, this is working under our, my previous statements that Francisquini has taken steps to try to avoid apprehension by law enforcement, and why we are working with our federal partners as well as numerous other agencies.
So he likely, he had already killed her and was then having an argument with the mother in Waterbury.
I don't want to speculate on that, and the specifics of that. Again, this is very active, but,
But he
they're,
destroyed his cell phone
correct,
along with taking off the monitor.
correct,
Okay.
yes. So again, if I was going to speak to the public and say anything, if there's any efforts to maybe use a phone, maybe try to contact somebody, that may be something that we'd be asking the general public to contact us if they have any contact with him or anything along those lines. But again, the message is that this is a very violent offender. We need to get that out, and people who may have any sort of sightings or him need to contact law enforcement immediately. Do not approach Francisquini. Call 911, and if you have any information regarding whereabouts or where he's been seen throughout the course of the weekend. I understand I've been very descriptive about what happened as far as the manner of death and the status of the victim afterwards, but I think that goes important to say that at this stage of the investigation, we can clearly rule out that this was a accident, and this was nothing but an intentional act based upon the state of Camilla after she'd been murdered. All right, with that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. We will keep the community, we'll keep the media updated as this investigation proceeds. There will be additional updates that will be put out. Please check our social media platforms. That's the most accurate and the quickest way to stay updated on here. If we have anything that's an immediate threat to the community or public, that should be where the public is monitoring for up-to-date and real-time messaging regarding this incident. So, thank you.
Will you be releasing a picture of him?
That is something we're considering, but not at this time. All right? There is, I believe, open source things on the internet, as well as requests for support for the family and stuff, but I can't speak to those, so. Thank you.
Thank you.